we got Detective First Grade Mike Prate, 7-7, Buddy Boys, got transferred, whole bunch of really interesting stuff, went to narcotics, back to the 7-9, landed a 7-9, retired as a first grader, doing really, really, really important murder work. And then Special Agent Jimmy Glynn of the FBI, one of the nicest, smartest, most capable people I've ever met. And just as like not the way a lot of people see the FBI. I have a lot of good friends who were at FBI headquarters and all over the country, and I've met them. But when Jimmy walked in the first time in the office and they said he was an FBI agent, I didn't believe it. I said, he's more like one of us than one of the feds. So really just fit in, and it's been a long-term 35 plus year friendship and relationship. So we got Jimmy Glynn, FBI, and Mike Prate coming in. Let's do this. I'm going to see if I can get it on the other side. So 13 members of a Brooklyn-based gang, Cash Money Brothers, indicted for racketeering. Long story short, there's 12 defendants, according to this press release, and I want to just make sure, and you guys can validate it. I'm just going off the press release. We have Eric Moore, we have Damian Hardy, Dwayne Myers, James Sessoms. We have all the nicknames for everybody. Their street names: World, eBay, Thor, Pops, Carl Davis. I don't know, Ferrier. I don't remember his nickname, and a whole bunch of stuff. We got Peanut, Ivory Davis, Dwayne Myers, Thor, Kojak. We're probably looking at about 6 murders. Abu Bakr Rahim, J.R. Hamilton gets killed in the 7-3. Long story short, this massive indictment comes down in 2005. And you guys don't resolve this case. The final conviction is 2015. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's pretty close.
Yeah,
no, that's correct. 2015.
Yeah, so I want everyone to know it took 10 years to put these acts of violence who were terrorizing the Lafayette Gardens housing development and surrounding Bedford-Stuyvesant community, breaching into the 7-3, breaching into Lower Manhattan and Soho. These gangbangers, Ivory Davis gets shot in front of the tunnel, and 6 months later gets shot in Soho and killed. An innocent victim does get run over and killed when Ivory Davis tries to run away. Don't think for 1 second that this violence does not creep into your world. This is not a different world. It is in our faces. Pete can certainly talk about it when we talk about his case up in the Bronx, his Big Rico and his involvement in that stuff. So this stuff. So here is the press release, and here are all the defendants. So why don't we walk it through as best as you guys can chronologically, starting with the 1998 murder when World killed the roller rink bouncer, getting thrown out for that. And that really started his terror of violence. Is that a fair statement to say, guys?
It's funny, right? Because you really didn't even get to tie that one until we did a proffer. And then guys talked about that through a proffer, right? Like, so that was the speaking to Pete before we came live, that was truly the most amazing part of the whole thing of dealing with the feds and Jimmy, getting down to the U.S. Attorney's office and getting guys, they're going to become a cooperator. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, you ever see that guy were you in the precinct when that guy got killed on the corner? And you're like, yeah. And he's like, you ever solved that? No, I did it. And it was just, you were like, wait, what? And you go, yeah, the roller rink, I'm trying to think of what they called it, the Empire Roller Rink. You remember that place? Yeah, World got dissed by the bouncer and he sent Thor back to kill him. Like, and you're like, what? And then now you had to go back and dig up something that you did. Like, you came with your own violence, right? Like, I had folders and I came with my own violence. But man, you walked away with so much more. It was crazy. It really was crazy.
Yep. So here's a picture up on the screen, just so everyone knows. World is on the right. In the middle is Ivory Peanut Davis, which is where the conflict is. And then the person on the left is Daryl Hamo, or Homicide Baum. Baum is, or was, I should say, because he is no longer of this earth, the bodyguard of Mike Tyson, went away for basically the entire 1990s. Excuse me. And then got out of jail, hooked up with Tyson again. Tyson was loyal to him. I believe, if I got the story straight, he wanted to get into the action. People, I need you to understand, if you've never watched The Wire, there are so many similarities of the behavior and the fact that they have a path to legitimacy and they just can't, and they have to go bang hard and get back into the neighborhoods and hit it. And I think Hamo was a really good example of that. He could have just rode with Tyson and did that, but he had to get back into the neighborhood, and he took one in the back of the head as a result. So that's who it is here. So again, we got 1999. Bring us to that was 98, the roller rink and the bouncer Mike Colon who gets killed. Bring us to 1999, June 12th, Myron Wise Hardy, Damian World Hardy's brother.
So let me just set it up for the folks that don't know anything about the Lafayette Gardens. And Jimmy, yes, you can throw the BS flag if I'm saying anything wrong, right? There's 7 buildings that make up the Lafayette Gardens housing project, right? They're anywhere from 13 to 15 stories, and 2 of them are 20-story buildings, right? And they have 880 apartments, right? And they have about 2,600 residents in that area, and all of that was controlled by like 3 or 4 groups that were operating within different buildings. Wise and World took on Bush and Peanut had his own group of buildings, right? And it was like everybody was making money, but everybody wanted to make more money, right? And so that's what it came down to. I think Wise getting killed, and Jimmy, you tell me if I'm not remembering it, it was like a diss. It really wasn't over anything crazy. World went to jail. So World, who was, at that point still is batshit crazy, was in jail. And Wise was like the glamour piece of the crew. And, he gets killed. And it really set a momentum off in there on just, you got to think of it. It's like one square city block with 7 buildings. And it was nonstop shooting in there, back and forth. And it really was crazy. They had an idea or the execution of help me, Tommy. The next murder after Wise got killed was a couple days later. So what did
Kojak
get killed in the lobby.
Yeah. So hold on. So for everyone to know, Myron Wise Hardy, Wise gets killed on June 12th. On June 15th, Kojak, who was accused of giving the gun to Ramel Davis, who's the shooter, gets killed 3 days later. So this is hot. And I remember being on the scene and finding out later that Thor was the shooter of Gerard Mackin's Kojak. And I remember him standing right in front of us while we're processing the crime scene like he is untouchable. I distinctly remember that.
Well, if you even
you know what happened there, Tommy, too, with the murder of how it was kind of set up. Initially, Thor was with Ivy Davis and Kojak in the other building.
Yep.
And when Ramel Davis,
yeah, I think what Jimmy's saying is when he left, it was a phone call was made, and then that's why they dropped him in the lobby. But this, like World and Wise, like, yeah, the federal case starts like that's being potatoes, but they were shooting government witnesses even before that. And I think somebody said in one of your comments, Tommy, that the 8A precinct was really right across the street, but that was the boundary line, right? So
right.
They killed somebody on the corner of the 8A.
Yep.
And then the guys from the 8A never even came out. They just ran back into their house. It was like a totally different world, right? The police were right across the street, but they were like, "Hey, that's a 7-9."
Huh? I know that place very well. We spent a lot of time there. Interesting stuff for sure. So 3 days later, 99, and then if I've got my chronology, it kind of goes quiet for a little bit less than a year, but then in 2000, I want to say J.R. Hamilton gets shot in the 7-3, and then eBay is the Manhattan case. Again, August 1st, 2000, and then August 10th, 2000. So again, once the violence resurrects, then it gets hot really fast again. And and then just so everyone knows, go into Comstat with these acts of violence that are all having the same names and the same players, and they're constantly asking, well, what are you doing about this? Where's the case? What's going on? Where's the case? So yeah, so let's do JR, and then eBay, because that Manhattan case is wild.
Yeah. So what World's Crew is doing is and again, Jimmy, you tell me you throw the BS flag, but they were into everything. Like, you think about street kids who grew up in the ghetto, in the projects, right? But they had their hands in everything. They were selling drugs in and around the projects. Then they made a connection, right? Like, some of the stories that came out of this whole thing were absolutely incredible. Like, it started inside Lafayette Gardens in the lobbies of the buildings, and then it moved to the outside streets, and then more and more and more it grew. And then it started in the clubs of Manhattan, where they would go in and target like the rappers and the high end. I want to say and I could be wrong, but Tyson Beckford, like models.
He was a 6 Money Murder member,
Was he?
Yeah.
Okay. They robbed him of all his jewelry in one of the clubs. Like, it was like matter of fact, like they were like the fire department, right? They were just waiting for a call. Where are we going? What club are we going? How many guns do we need? And then we're just going to go rob everybody. And the crazy part to that whole thing is, right, Damien Hardy's mother used to pawn the jewelry at all the different pawn shops. Like, down in Flatbush was like Jam, and then the Bronx. But they would do the robbery, give her all the jewelry, and then she would go, 70-year-old lady, she would go and do all of the different stuff.
Mike, didn't Damien Hardy's mother throw a party when Hamo got killed or something like that? There was a big thing about, like, Hamo's dead, let's throw a party, and they threw a big party. But I want to talk about Stephon Marbury. He got robbed in the 10th. These guys walked right up to him. He was sitting in a Bentley in the 10th precinct, and they knock on the window. He rolled down his window. They stick a gun in it. They steal like a $50,000 necklace, and then we take a phone call like 5 hours later that, the guy who did the robbery of Stephon Marbury in Manhattan, he's a 7-9 guy, and then we call the 10th, and we're like, hey, we know who your robber is, and they're like, how'd you know about this? It was like, our informant already called us and told us who did everything. Yeah, and then they called Stephon Marbury, and then Marbury calls back and says, yeah, I'm not cooperating. So
I gotta tell you, like, I know Jimmy dropped, but like when we did, like, it would be wrong of me not to mention. We're not going to mention the agents that did it with us, but the HSI, the guys from HSI, who they really broke the case wide open, because at the end of the day, like I said, you have all the violence, you know who all the players are, but you can't get a witness to come forward, right? Especially in state court, right? So you can't get a witness to go forward. And one day we get a call in the office of like, hey, like, it's almost like, hey, jerk off, you got a dex in on this guy. It's like, yeah. And he's a target of our federal case. Yeah. And you go, okay, we're going to buy 6 kilos for him tonight in the airport parking lot in JFK. You guys want to come? I remember the Queen's chief, the chief of narcotics, being like, who are these assholes from the 7-9, bringing in 6 keys when my guys don't know anything about it?
Right. All right, Mike, let's go to June 10th, 2000. Quincy and Marcy. Hamo gets shot and killed.
Yeah.
So, Mike Tyson's bodyguard.
Right. So there's a lot of different conversations that lead up to that, but they wanted retribution. They wanted him, right? They wanted Hamo. And I think it was Puff and eBay. They get a girl to set him up. He comes and meets her in the corner, and then they roll up and they just drop him on the corner, and that just really starts that whole chain of events, right? Because, you know, I think we all respond out there for that, but like you don't really know what you have until you have it, and then, you know, then there's the rumors of Mike Tyson being involved and putting up a bounty on the guys who killed his boy, and you know, so I think if I remember right, Hamo might have been involved in shooting 50 a couple of days before that.
Well, let me bring that up. That's a good point. So Jimmy's having technical difficulties, folks, so please bear with him. But this is really interesting. So here's 50 Cent. Many Men is a song, and in the song, in the third verse, 50 Cent's lyrics are, in the Bible, it says, what goes around comes around. Hamo shot me. 3 weeks later, he got shot down. Now it's clear that I am here for a real reason, because he got hit like I got hit, but he ain't fucking breathing.
You can't read between the lines. In the Bible it says, what goes around comes around. Hamo shot me, 3 weeks later he got shot down. Now it's clear that I'm here for a real reason, cause he got hit like I got hit, but he ain't fucking breathing. Many men, many men wish death upon me, Lord. I don't cry no more, don't look to the sky no more. Have mercy on me, have mercy on my soul. Somewhere my heart turned cold.
All right, so what everyone needs to know is, Mike, can you validate, was this Fred Supreme McGriff that hired Hamo to kill 50 Cent over rap stuff? That's what the legend is. I don't know if it's true. But the bottom line was, it was Hamo in New Jersey in front of the DoubleTree that did this, and 3 weeks later he gets dropped. And so that's the sequence.
So and again, we might have to double check that, because like when 50 gets shit, there was a shootout with World and the crew after the Magic Stick stuff on Hot 97.
Magic, what? Magic. I got the magic.
Right? He made so there's an interview going on. Right?
Over Magic Stick, the song Magic Stick.
If I can't party, if I can't get in with the snub, I wrote Magic Stick. I gave Kim a hit. Then I shoot the video, she threw a little fit. Got emotional and shit. Now this I don't get. Why would I care about your emotions? You're not my bitch. And that's a no. I'm on that doggy style. Let's go. I don't love a whole pop of wooden round, so I had to let my brother know. Never stay in center, play the back and let your money grow. Most of the niggas wouldn't be around if you was Southside Jamaica, they be here. That's why Let's go. Hold up. We this is all New York, Jersey, Connecticut, all in fun and music. That's what's up.
That's what it is.
For real. 50, I need you right now. I need you. This is all in fun.
Okay,
man.
I won't start nothing.
50.
Oh, it's gonna be easy. But I'm comfortable. My position just changed.
I know. I got you.
You know what I mean? I want to see them fight for my position.
Nah. I know. But we gotta talk now, man. We gotta talk. I love you, man. We gonna talk right now.
It's a big transition, baby. And I've been on this for so long.
I know.
So long.
It got too hyped in there. I know we were throwing on the beats. It got crazy.
Right. Yeah. He disses her on the air at Hot 97.
Yes.
And at that point, there's a whole bunch of phone calls made. They go down to Hot 97. They're waiting for 50 to come out. And then at some point, he drives out to New Jersey. And when he gets out of his car at the hotel, and we had it all, right? Like I don't know, Pete, how it was up there when you did your cases, but like there was so many cases that were happening. You had all the proof, but it was almost like the U.S. Attorney's Office was like, no mas. We don't want to do it. We'll never stop. You know, it really was like that.
At Eastern?
No, yeah, at Eastern. They were like, wait.
Oh, Southern was the opposite, man. Southern, like, bring it. And the thing that sucked is, like, you're doing a RICO case. That's like I was doing sex, money, murder, and one of the defendants went to trial. During trial, we're proffering a guy for a spinoff case. So I mean, it was like a fucking grind. So in fact, I don't think there was any case that we did that didn't lead to at least one or two other cases. And we were handing cases off to other agents as well, because you can only do so much effectively. But yeah, Southern I think was a little bit more aggressive than Eastern. Because, dude, they would take anything. They never said no.
And I'll let Jimmy jump in. Jimmy, I don't know if you can hear me, but at some point, right, the guys at the U.S. Attorney's Office were like, no more. Like, we don't want to do the Russians doing accident crashes. We don't want to do no more. Right. We want nothing more to do with this.
Can you guys hear me or no?
Yes. Go, Jimmy. Did you hear Mike's question?
Because I don't see myself on it. I don't see anything right now. Okay. I'm sorry. It kind of cut out for about a good 10 minutes, I thought, here. So I missed a lot of the show. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's all good, buddy. We're just talking. It's like this is like we're having a phone call, baby. You know?
So Jimmy, hey, Jimmy, from your perspective, right?
I'm sorry.
No, from your perspective in the FBI, right? When we did Lafayette Gardens, right? Like, there was so many places it went. Like, it went, to the crash stuff down with the Russians down in Coney Island. But at some point, the U.S. Attorney's Office said, let's pull back the reins on this. Like, we have enough. I mean, World and eBay got charged on a murder case. I mean, that they were a death penalty case in New York. And
yes.
And World went, like, he played that psycho route where they bring him back with all the medication to be normal so that they could execute him, And then they finally at some point said, no good.
Well, Holder, Mukoski was the AG, and he put the death penalty on these two guys. And then when Holder he's like, nope, no fucking death penalties for these guys. Don't worry about how many people they killed and how much terror they brought down on the Bedford-Stuyvesant community. And they will continue to kill. And by the way, they're fucking with guards all day long, right? Like, that is a whole nother story about what they do.
I think simply for me, right? I was amazed. Like, you hear the term domestic terrorism thrown around every day, like it's just thrown around. But there were truly people, the 2,600 residents that lived in Lafayette Gardens, who lived there terrified that they couldn't come out every single day, right? Like, that's right. And I'm sure it was the same way up in Manhattan. Like, you had a group of people who, for whatever circumstances, had to live in the projects, and they were truly terrorized by these individuals who lived there. You couldn't, if you took somebody out of their apartment as a witness for a homicide, you were basically signing their death warrant when they came back. Everybody knew, hey, Mike, the detectives were over at 11B. They went in, they stayed in there a few minutes later. They went in there for 20 minutes. Next thing you know, as soon as you left, that person at 11B got a visit. Their daughter got a visit in the stairwell. That was true domestic terrorism at its best. Like, I got a question.
You know what? To Mike's point, if you remember the how well they kind of controlled the whole projects there, where they put the fear of God into everybody, saying, you know what, this is our territory. Nobody could do anything without it coming through us. And there was a couple of stories that I recall where they actually did their own undercover operations. They went down to the 99th cent store in the bodega, sent CMB members in to buy crack.
All right, we're going to do let's do this. I'm going to tell Jimmy to sign off on the Wi-Fi. I'm going to take Sleepy Joe's recommendation to just sign in on his phone and run his...
I got a question for Mike while you're doing that, Tommy.
Hold on. He's coming in.
All right. It's actually...
Hold on. Let's do this. Hey, Jimmy, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe
I got
cut off the home Wi-Fi. Why don't you just sign in from your phone and then no video and then just talk in? Because I think the video's killing you. You don't have enough bandwidth. The FBI, the FBI and federal pensions are not sufficient.
They're not.
So,
No. We got to get the NYPD.
The FBI throttling them down.
Yeah. So here's my question, Mike. Two things. Number one, when you had multi-defendants, when you had the defendant conferences, do you ever see these guys, like, when all of a sudden one of them's missing because they're now signed the cooperation agreement, the reaction of the other guys that are standing there and realize that they got an insider that flipped? Tell me that's not fucking priceless.
No, 100%. Like, we have one of the guys, one of our main cooperators did a home invasion robbery, right? And we charge them in state because if they can't do them, the feds would be like, "Can you do them in state, and we'll get them later on?" Yeah, no problem. So we did him in state. He had a parole violation, so we went upstate for a year and a half, right? We went up to visit him to try and flip him upstate, and he was like, "Nah, I ain't cooperating." We were like, "Okay, no problem." We left. And then the day he got released, we were back with an arrest warrant from the feds. And he was like, "Wait, what do you mean?" And we're like, no, we're driving down from Buffalo. We took him all the way back down, right? Like, let him step out. His family's there, and then we like cuffed him up and bring him back. Drove him all the way back, and he was like, "This is crazy." We're like, "Yeah, dude, you're looking the numbers, Pete. That was what got them, right? The numbers. What? I committed a robbery. It was a Hobbs Act robbery, a home invasion with a gun, and now we're going to RICO you. You'll never get out. You'll do all of life in there."
Yeah, but I used to laugh, man. Like first you'd have like 13 defendants at a conference, then like you'd come back and you'd be like 10. So that means 3 people flipped, and the other guys are sitting there like, "What the fuck?" That was one thing that blew the line. And I don't know if you guys ever proffered people to what they were talking about in jail. Like we had separation orders for all these people that we did in sex, money, murder because we didn't want to talk to each other, coming up with stories. So we'd proffer dudes. They're like, "Yeah, man, they're talking to each other." We're like, "How? They're not even." Well, if you flush the toilet on one floor and you flush the other toilet on the floor below, they can talk through the pipes. And I'm like, man, can't these motherfuckers use their powers for good? You know what I mean? Like if you're that creative, that you can figure that shit out. How are you not? It just blew my mind, the stuff that you hear from these guys.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the guys for our group thought that nobody would ever flip, because they had so much on each other. But then they realized, like, oh shit, these guys are just giving up their own shit too. Like they lost their minds. They were like, and again, guys would come in and be like, "Hey, do you know your cooperator, killed somebody in the hallway?" We'd be like, "Yeah, we got that already, big guy." And he's like, now what do I do now?
Right.
So Mike, Jimmy looks like Jimmy's getting his phone in. So while we're waiting for him to come back, just set up, because I'm fascinated by not only this level of violence, but the interaction with celebrities and the rappers, the boxers, and how it all infiltrates all these clubs, these nightclubs we've all been to, these worlds. And anyone who, again, I'm going to go back to The Wire, when Hulk and Carter run into the gangbangers in the movie theater. Don't think for 1 second that this stuff does not weave into our lives. And it can happen anywhere. And when Nut gets shot and killed in Manhattan, and he hits the accelerator and runs over I think he was Swedish or Dutch filmmaker, and he just runs him over and kills him, and he gets his leg severed off his body, and they bring him to St. Vincent's, and they try to save him, but he dies on the table. This stuff bleeds into our lives. Don't let anyone kid you.
Without a doubt, he's just a visitor, right, to New York City. He's doing what he does. He's doing what everybody does in Times Square, right? He's out walking around, he's just enjoying himself. And he gets hit by the car. And he got hit by the car because obviously they shot the guy inside of it. And that was all coordinated, right? And the funny, it's not funny, but the thought that people don't really understand, is you don't really realize how violent people can be. And they don't give a shit about you. They'll kill everyone out there, and they don't care about you. There's no caring. And even when they're proffering the story and they're telling a story, it is kind of like the shark's dead eyes. I had to kill that guy. I would have killed everybody in the barbershop, if they asked me.
Yeah. Hey, Jimmy, how are you doing there, buddy?
I'm good, King. You got me?
Yeah, this is good.
All right.
Yeah.
You're sorry about that.
Marlon Bethel. Pete is on mute talking.
Oh, brother, your picture is clear. Your voice is clear. Definitely the right way to go, brother.
All right. All right. Let's roll now.
All right. So let's talk about, let's get back to this. The celebrities, these cases. If you got the indictment and you guys and the 12 defendants who were involved. The 2 got life, should have been on death row, but they got Holder took them off death row. These other 12 defendants. Estimate how many other people were involved that should have been taken down, and talk about 6 murders, X number of robberies, X number of how much wider is this group really responsible for the terror in LG that you were talking about, Mike?
Jimmy?
You know what, Tommy? The way it broke down, we kind of picked off a few ahead of time. We did a couple of single cases. I remember, charging a kidnapping case, charging a drug conspiracy case. We took those guys down, flipped them as cooperators to then go ahead and, testify against the hierarchy of the crew. So really, the last 12 that we took down was kind of the remaining members of CMB. There were a couple of, again, like Mike said earlier, to his point, there were a couple other members or associates that we could have taken down because they were on site of some of the murders. They kind of assisted in either holding them down or a getaway driver. But the U.S. Attorney's Office at some point just said, listen, let's take our best 6 homicides. Let's get the shooters. Let's get the active players. And, call it a day at that point there. There were a couple, you know what, Mike, other than an actual maybe 2 or 3 CMB members left who were just really drug dealers, I don't know of anybody else out there that we didn't pick up. The only other one was, what's his name, Haystack, who was actually killed a year later, I think, at Lafayette Gardens Day.
Right. I would advocate that I always truly believe that we should have done World's Mother and some of the family members, because it was just evilness, right? That whole family was evilness, and they just were terrorists. Like, they truly were terrorists.
Yeah. So,
like you said, they celebrated Peanut's death. They had that. They were playing they recorded videos of Eyewitness News, Channel 5 News, and they played them over and over again that night, laughing and just having a good time, and then continue to plot what's their next, who's their next hit. They just wanted to keep on going at that point.
Tommy, can I tell you my favorite story that came out of the Prophets? There was a major drug dealer in Queens. I forget his name, but he gets killed, and they bury him out in New Jersey, right? But he had bought his fiance a custom, 8-carat diamond ring, some crazy number, right? Like crazy. They come back to Brownsville to do the wake. They're going to do the celebration of life for them inside one of the housing projects in Brownsville. World and his guys go in there and they rob her for the ring.
Of course.
He gives the ring to Lil Kim, who wears it in the Target commercial at Christmas.
Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. Whether we down the slopes or on the streets, we got every color fleece, man, we so unique. When it's cold outside, no, it's still all good. Lil Kim gon' keep it hot in the Old Navy hood.
That is so good. See, that's what you're only going to get at the Ten-Four Tavern. That's the kind of stories. That's what we're looking for.
That was the craziest story.
So good.
If you slow down the video, you can actually see her wearing it on her hand.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Okay. Yeah. Well, so let's talk about this. Let me do this one. Hold on a second. I got something really good. Ivory Peanut Davis, or Nut, or Peanut, was cast in Notorious B.I.G. and Lil Kim's Get Money video as her love interest in the Get Money video. And then he winds up being World's biggest rival.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you see what's going on here, people? It's crazy. And I'm going to go one more. I want to bring up the fact because we didn't address it yet. When Hamo gets killed, Tyson not only pays for Hamo's funeral and expenses and takes care of everybody. And do I remember this correctly, Mike? Did Tommy Caffrey catch Hamo, or
I think he did.
Yeah, because I think I distinctly remember a conversation where the sister called up and said, "Hey, my brother Daryl got killed," and then Tommy Caffrey, which is this whole conversation is fascinating to me. He says, "Hey, I'm really sorry for your loss, doing the right thing." And she's like, "I don't give a fuck about that. I just want to know when I can get his car and his fucking property back," or some shit like that. Like there was some crazy story about that. But Tyson pays for the funeral and then puts out a 50 grand hit. Tell everybody who Tyson put a 50 grand hit out on.
Well,
Damien Hardy.
So, besides paying for the funeral expenses there, a couple of weeks later, he had a fight with Louis Savarese over in Europe, and he ends up beating Savarese in 38 seconds. And then at the end of the fight there, he dedicated to Hamo, who basically says, until I meet you again, this was for you. You're the man. You're my brother. I love you type thing. And then it's, basically put on the street, $50,000 to anybody that gives up or kills those involved with Hamo's death.
Yep. And then what's the response when Tyson puts out the 50K hit on World? What do you guys remember? What's World's response to that?
Yeah, World responded back and put a $50,000 hit on Tyson.
That's right. That's right.
They almost carried it out there on one occasion. They claimed Tyson was sleeping. He was unaware of his surroundings, and they caught him on Atlantic Avenue in, I believe, Bedford by the
shelter. The
shelter. And they were close to whacking him that day, but they held off. And also at that party with what's his name, the mother, World's mother there.
Mrs. Hardy.
Then they discussed talking about hitting Tyson at that point in time, and moved Shelby Henderson. Basically talked him out of it, saying, "No, he's Muslim. We shouldn't hit him. Let's move forward from this. No, let's stay away from it there." But World wanted no part of it there. He wanted, again, it was $50,000 on his head. Well, I want to strike first, which was, World wasn't taking any prisoners. He was going to get you before you got him.
Yep. So talk about, thanks, Jimmy. Perfect, because that's exactly it. And it's so crazy to me. You talked about peripheral players, and I think Zara Sarkisian was never charged. Is that true? Because Sarkisian is alleged, and I'm reading some of the documents, that he was the driver in a lot of these hits. Does that name sound familiar?
Yeah, two brothers, the Sarkisians.
Yeah. Okay. So and to your point, Mike, earlier, what I'm trying to let the audience know is there's so many peripheral players who are so involved in the conspiracy, because this is a RICO, racketeering, influence, corrupt organization, that the prosecutors are like, stop. And Tony Vigiani, who did a great Trinidadian RICO case on drug dealers in the 7-7, when I was there as a sergeant, I remember him telling me the prosecutor said, stop talking to people.
Tommy,
we have to stop and wrap this case up.
I really might not have ever retired. I got to be honest with you. Like, you could have made case after case after case, and Jimmy and I could have went, okay, now we're going down this path. Like, there was a whole group of other people. But I just got the feeling that at some point the U.S. attorney was overwhelmed, and he was just like, that was it,
Yeah, but that was the difference, Tommy. Like I said earlier, between Southern and Eastern. Like the Sex Money murder case started in '97. We went with spinoffs. I left for Phoenix in 2007. And then for about another 8 to 10 years, other agents that were still in New York were working cases that were spinoffs of that. and then they got promoted and moved on. So I mean, that was the difference, I think, is that SDNY didn't ever have a brake pedal, which at times was a pain in the ass.
Well, that's even for narcotics. When we were there, we would go into special narcotics in Manhattan to write our warrant, like because the Brooklyn, the Brooklyn DA. Pete, what is like the things that make you laugh are like we had a cooperator, right, Jimmy, and then that cooperator was actually a witness in a homicide trial, but he lied.
Oh,
right. On state. So then he profited and gave up the right version in the Fed, right? But we had to bring him over to the state trial, and the state's like, well, what do you mean he lied? He's not going to testify. He's going to take the fifth.
Yeah.
It was crazy. It was really crazy.
So I think what I'm getting out of all of this, and I want the audience to really understand, is the complexity of putting together a criminal investigation, specifically a homicide, when they talk about clearance rates. And I know from being in the chair and having to go to CompStat, we're looking at a 65, 75, 85% clearance rate. And they're sitting there and you got all these homicides and you're going to CompStat and you're talking to the executive levels for accountability and responsibility and closing these cases. I would say of all the violence, Mike and Pete, you worked it. Jimmy, from the Fed side, it's a little different perspective, so I'm not trying to exclude you. But we're trying to put these cases together. We're being judged by our stats. And I would go to CompStat 99% of the time. I know who's involved and I know who the players are, but only we're solving 20% of them, 30% of them, because of the terror and the intimidation that you're talking about. And then the stats get swayed because of the easy ones. None of them are ever easy because there's a lot of work to even getting an obvious case, but you still got to do it right. You still got to build the evidence and you still got to put it together and you still got to go to the prosecutor. But the ones that are spontaneous and the ones that are domestic and the ones that are known to each other, like if you look at the stats, there's the street violence that are really hard to solve, but 99% you know who did what, and you've got all that information. And then you've got all the other kinds of murders and shootings and serious assaults that could end up in shootings that you can put together. So when you bunch all that together, the stats come into that national average of 65, 75%. And it's just really fascinating. So I want everyone to know that the detectives in New York City, all 5 boroughs, the gang violence and the street violence and the drug violence, they pretty much know exactly what's going on and who's doing what. Bringing in a case to a prosecutor is an entirely different animal. Would you guys all agree with that?
Yes, absolutely.
Yep.
Yes.
So, okay, wrap up with CMB. We're an hour and a half into this bad boy. We'll do a little bit of Operation Gunsmoke because I think it's also important for the audience to understand that you guys were doing 2 RICOs kind of overlapping each other, which is no small task at all. One's enough. So 2 overlapping each other in the confines of the 1.1 square mile of God's little acre of Bedside 79 precinct. So wrap up. Any final thoughts on CMB?
So, and Jimmy, keep me honest, right? So when you think about World and you hear this story, this is not just a kid from Lafayette Gardens. This is a kid from Lafayette Gardens who created a drug enterprise that was making, you would actually think it would be like, I forget, Walter White said it best on Breaking Bad. You take me down, I have a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. He was everywhere. He was in the gangs. He was in the Muslim stuff. He was in he had gone, when we apprehended him, he was flying back from Jordan, right? He had flown to Jordan, got into Fallujah somehow, tried to get into Israel. They turned him back. He went back to Jordan. They put him on a plane with flex cuffs and said, no, you're going back to the United States. Think about that. that's a kid from the projects, right? Like he had a lot of reach and he was everywhere. Everything that went on, he was making money. He had a piece of the bump and run accidents with the Russian doctors down in Coney Island. I got to tell you, that was like a multi-million-dollar industry that he had a whole separate crew doing that. He had a whole separate crew that was doing like, what you would call like the retail organized theft. He had a crew doing that. He had a crew doing shootings. He had the mom and pop weed store. It was baffling at some point when guys came in and told stories. There was a proffer where, and Jimmy, I think you sat in that proffer, but there was a proffer where they go, hey, get the guys, we're gonna go down and kill Bush. And the guy's like, okay, that's the rival drug dealer from Lafayette Gardens, right? Yeah, no problem. But then they drive into Manhattan and they park by the UN. And they go, world's on a satellite phone. And then all of a sudden, the presidential motorcade goes by. And he goes, yeah, there he is. That's the guy we're going to get. And half the guys in the car were like, wait, what? Wait, what? But that was at the end, right before like we grabbed him. That was some crazy stuff. Like everybody in the room, the U.S. attorney and everything. I think Sean at that point, I think he went white. And he had to step out. He was like, "What's going on?"
But that thing, he's going to, the rival dealer Bush. Instead, world's at, they're looking to go get George Bush.
Yeah. So funny. Hey guys, I'm going to pull up some pictures to wrap up the CMB just to show everybody like who was intertwined with who. So here's a picture of Jada Kiss, Mike Tyson,
Come on,
Jada Kiss.
Jada Kiss.
Like, do you think I do like LL Cool J though. I will say I do like LL Cool J. Styles P, Hamo, Tyson at a table, right? Damian Hardy, Lil Kim, Ivory Nutt, and Daryl Baum. This is Hamo who got killed with Ivory Davis. This is the video. I did that already. That was us. So that's it. So, these guys were all intertwined with each other. Here's Lil Kim and Foxy Brown. They were actually rivals, but there was also interaction between them. And I was in the 7-7 as a sergeant, and Foxy Brown's house was a home invasion when she was sleeping, and she came into the 7-7 squad, Foxy Brown, and I don't know who did it. This is all intertwined. It's all the same shit. They're all robbing each other blind.
Without a doubt. And the funny part to that whole stuff is like when we served Lil Kim with the subpoena, like I cannot go down JFK gate 38 without waiting. Like we were waiting at the bottom of the jetway for her. She came walking down, and then we served her with the subpoena. And it's so funny because I tell everybody that was crazy. Yeah, so good. So good.
You've just watched a clip from our live episode. Click the description to watch the full episode. Like, share, and subscribe for more videos just like this.